hits with the Australian market. We were never actually told. I know that seems really unbelievable. We only actually found out we had any level of popularity in Australia when we started getting royalty statements out. And we did a new deal after we got ourselves away from the CBS contract, which took quite a few years. We did a new deal with Columbia Dance Pool, which is kind of CBS renewed. And we decided to come out and actually start to break the market gradually, starting from the bottom end up.
How do you make it fresh?
It's impossible. You go through the motions. I mean, you know, it must be the same for an artist like Prince with Purple Rain. It must be exactly the same for Madonna with Like a Virgin. She must have a very good memory if she can remember being a virgin. It must be, it's just as hard for them. It's over in 4 minutes. I mean, initially, you know, they were faced with, okay, right, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And obviously people would even ask for the money back, you know, do spin me around, which really does bewilder me, because if I went to see a group, which I don't anymore, I don't see them anymore.
You don't go and see any gigs?
No. I mean, I know what goes into it, all the blood, sweat, tears,
you've seen them,
drinks, I've been doing it too long. But if I was in the position of going to see a group, if there was somebody I wanted to go and see, I don't really think that I'd want to see them do something that I've seen on TV 1,000 times or heard on the radio 1,000 times. I'm more receptive to new material, but I've got to realise that the general public aren't always like that.
Well, it's interesting because one of the clips we've got is George Michael's father figure, and he's been through the same sort of, you know, being stuck with a record company and having to change and wanting to change and not being allowed to. Can you identify to us?
Oh yeah, I understand the position he's in. I mean, also as well, I mean, I like the father figure video that you're going to play, because it was quite new not to see the artist constantly in the video. It was very atmospheric and just a nice thing to look at. It sort of had the same vibe about it as early Roxy music, a very atmospheric thing. I really liked it. It was a pleasure not to have to look at George Michael for 4 more minutes.
Sitting here with Pete Burns, having a coffee. Do you like to start the day with a coffee, Pete?
Oh God, I need a bucket of coffee to start the day.
And throughout the day? I mean, what's the
just about 10 cups in the morning, then I'm okay. When I start to shake, get the coffee trembles.
The heart starters. We just saw George Michael, and you mentioned, you know, the influence, almost like a Roxy Music feel. And Roxy Music, I think, were one of those seminal bands, I think, particularly in England around the sort of late 70s, that had an image that I mean, at the same time as Bowie, that had an image that was totally sort of camp and outside of the established rock and roll things. Were they a big influence on it?
They weren't at the time, but in retrospect, when I look back at what they did, I find them to be a lot more musically interesting than David Bowie was. A lot more musically interesting. I mean, when I look back at Bowie's early work, it's pretty standard R&B, and I can find a lot of sloppy sections in it, where I think Roxy Music were more out on a limb, and I did like the imagery, because to me it was a cartoon sort of image, and that's the period that I grew up in, the Bieber period, the 70s and everything.
Okay, well, let's have a look at a career. You mentioned Madonna earlier on, if she could remember being like a virgin, but you picked Human Nature, I think. Yeah,
I picked that one because it was one of the videos that, from European MTV point of view, didn't get that much exposure, and it was something I only saw brief glitches of, and I just remember one bit where she's got a chihuahua with an S&M plug on. I thought that was really funny, so it's a video I'd actually like the chance to see.
And it's a great tune too.
Yeah, I suppose it is, but unfortunately I watched the record as opposed to listen to it. You know, I saw the video and it impressed me, and then our satellite dish went down and I never saw the video.
Oh damn, well have a look at it now, you'll enjoy this. You're on the diner, we're into our first cup of coffee with Pete Burns, and we'll be back in a minute. We have the coffees coming. Pete, I'm just thinking, you're travelling around with the band. Is that a difficult thing to do a lot of the time? I mean, how do you get on with everybody and Steve and everybody?
Well, the band get on really, really well. Obviously, our lineup's changed considerably since we began. We actually began in the late 70s, but you know, as far as the mass public knows, it was in the 80s. And it's not a solid lineup of a band. There's only me and Steve, really, that have stayed solid. And the people that work with us, it becomes almost like a family atmosphere. They've got to have, I mean, before they've got any talent, they've got to have the sort of right personalities, really.
Now, the Pet Shop Boys, two guys who've actually been able to keep themselves going for years, and they've really done some fantastic clips over the years and put out some great sounds. What do you think the secret of their success, sound-wise, is?
It's a very identifiable sound. I mean, a lot of people that I know who aren't fans of the Pet Shop Boys don't think Neil Tennant can sing, mainly because he's not yodeling all over the track like a Bono sort of thing, but he's got his own style and he's never tried to change his style. It's like Adidas trainers is a classic thing, and the music's always got a sense of humour. I like the way that I know what they've been through behind the scenes in the industry with TV programmers thinking, oh, can't you move, or can't you do this, or can't you dress up? You know, I know that they get a lot of pressure because they're pretty static people, and I also like the way that with that pressure they've managed to compensate by putting things around them and still remain the same. I just really like them. I don't own any of their albums. In fact, I don't own any of their records, but I know that whenever they do something, it stands out and it's always very easily identifiable as a Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah, I can understand that. So we picked Being Boring, which is a great song as well too.
I like the song and the video because there's a real sadness running through it. His lyrics in this song are very appropriate for the times. You know, that all his friends are gone in the 90s and stuff, what with AIDS and drug ODs and you know, the way life is when you're growing up, that people you think are going to be there forever just really aren't, right down to your parents. They're gone one day, and I just think the song is a very underrated song. It was underrated in Europe, you know, it's probably the smallest hit ever, and I thought it's a beautiful song.
Usually too long for radio, unfortunately.
Yeah, but still, that doesn't matter because it's not, you know, you don't care about the length while you're enjoying it. Well, I don't think anyone should ever make a record and just think, oh, is this the right length for the radio? It's about self-expression, and that's a good piece of work that they did that seemed very self-expressive.
We're talking with Pete Burns, and we're going to come back and talk about Courtney Love because you were in Liverpool, but we'll be back in a minute with her. Now, Pete, we mentioned before the break Courtney Love, and you just told me just while I was waiting to do the breakthrough that you actually knew her in Liverpool.
Yeah, not on a friendly basis, because when the punk movement kicked off, which would be 76, 77.
The Clash and Jam. And
you know, she was up there. She obviously had relocated. I don't know that much about her history, but I read a little bit. She's relocated on her college grant or some kind of, you know, trust fund to Liverpool and become sort of, you know, I'm sorry, Courtney, but she was known as a groupie. You know, she was knocking a slice off a lot of Liverpool groups, and what I really particularly remember her for was in Liverpool, which although it was a pretty dull city, I was sort of treated as punk royalty in Liverpool because I had the most extreme sort of image, you know, that had ever been seen on the streets of Liverpool. The time I worked in a record shop she used to hang out in, I always remember every day when I'd be coming into the city thinking, I hope that bitch isn't there, because she'd throw like cigarettes at you and shout faggot, asshole, and this, that, and the other. And it got to the point where the drummer in my band, Steve, you know, he very well remembers, he used to throw beer bottles at her because she was so obnoxious and loud. And you know, you get that anti-American thing and say, slut, this, that, and the other. She was a mess then, but she was really outrageous, and I remembered her for that. And then all these years later, she started to crop up with the Kurt thing and things before that, like film parts, and it was a bit like watching a car crash when I read a lot of the media exposure, especially after he killed himself. You know, it's had the same fascination as watching a race driver thinking they might crash at any minute. You liked her and you felt, you know, you cringed for her, and you think, oh my God, she's going to drop dead, and she's come through all that, and I think she's a wonderful example. She's not like a tragic Judy Garland type figure. She's a strong woman. I think she's, you know, a brilliant character. She's a definite alternative to what I consider to be absolute dross, like Gina G and Kylie. She's somebody up there, and you know, Madonna sort of had her day. What Madonna stood for sort of had her day, and Courtney brought something new to the fore.
Well, Hull's a great band, and you picked Miss World, which I think is probably, you know, one of her best songs.
I'm sure she's got many that are just as good. It's just the one that I happened to see on TV a few times, and I wish her all the luck in the world, Oscar, and you know.
Anything you'd like to say to her right now after all these years?
Well, just keep on trucking. That's all I'd like to say. I think she's fantastic, really fantastic.
Now, Pete, you've been involved in, I guess you'd call it dance as well.
Well, I think that what we do is we try and think of it as pop that you can dance to. I think pop music's given a short shrift, and a lot of crap comes out under the guise of pop music. I started off wanting to make pop music, and the fact that you can probably dance to our music is a bonus. It's given us another arena to expose our music in. I wouldn't categorise it as dance music, because the dance music that I hear today I would want nothing to do with, because I don't consider it to be music. I consider it to be a soundtrack for drug abuse, really.
I'm just thinking, you know, I mean, because we're going to play Salt and Pepper, and were you ever influenced by a lot of those sort of R&B backgrounds?
I suppose so, in a passing way. It's very difficult for me to sit down and say what I was actually influenced by, because it'd be things that were a long time before Salt and Pepper.
Yeah.
But there's some raw quality about Salt and Pepper that no matter how much the record company put them through what I term the sheep dip, you know, with the leg waxer and the hair braids and stuff, there's always a really rough edge to them. I
The
just,
street women.
yeah, I really like that kind of tough American chick, you know, there's something great about them, the way they move, the way they dance, their voices, their accents, everything about them I really like.
And they're pretty well the exponents, I think.
Yeah,
Salt and
I
Pepper.
like them. Speaking with Pete Burns from Dead or Alive, am I? And we're just going to have a break now. We'll be back any minute.
Pete, I'm just wondering, we touched on a little bit earlier on how you were working in a record store in Liverpool, and how you had an image there that really sort of set you apart and you're a bit of a legend. I'm just thinking, in the early days, what sort of an image were you pursuing, or was it an image at all you were pursuing, or was it just...
I was always, as a kid, I didn't even, people always think I'm from Liverpool, and I'm not. I'm from a place a long way away from Liverpool, the country village, and I suppose I had what people would term eccentric parents, because they weren't English, they were Austrian and stuff, and I was allowed to grow up with a lot of self-expression. I mean, I didn't go to school in the normal way that kids go, so I wasn't put into school until I was about 7. I was taken out when I was about 11, because it wasn't good for me. I was just encouraged to, you know, I was always given paints and things to make and stuff like that, and you know, that expands to doing it to yourself. And I had no idea of what was right and wrong, or what was acceptable and what wasn't. Some of the connotations of dressing up strangely, it was something that was encouraged from childhood. When I moved into the big city, which was Liverpool, because it was, you know, a few miles away, it got me so many doors open by being a sort of freaky character. I never had to pay to get into a nightclub. Somebody pushed me into a group. I got a job in a record shop. They didn't even want me to know where things were filed, just to stand there. So,
How would you sell records in that circumstance?
I didn't sell any, I just had to stand there because it got to be a tourist attraction. I was behind the counter. It was a crazy record shop called Probe Records, which is one of the first independent record shops with great people I worked with, and they just used to say, oh, don't learn where the records are, just stand there, because they think it's so funny that the whole door would get crowded out with tourists that come there to see the Beatles Museum, and they thought that I was infinitely more interested in the Beatles Museum. You know, they come in for a look, and I got to be a sort of, I can't describe what it was. It was a bit like just somebody standing there like an imbecile, getting a wage for it, and everything drifted.
What a great gig.
It was a good gig, actually. Sometimes I wish life could go back like that.
Actually, one outfit have done very well over the years, Soul to Soul, but they've been a little quiet lately. You've picked Keep On Moving. Jesse B's got his own recording studio, and they've got the Soul to Soul recording studio.
I don't really know that much about Jesse B. All I can see about Soul to Soul is they shot themselves in the foot by letting Karen Wheeler go. She was the voice of Soul to Soul, and of course, you know, they probably thought, oh, we can get another chick in who can sing that good. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they never did. She brought their sound a certain quality. And I think it was really sad when she went her way and they went theirs, and neither of them have achieved the success that they had.
Well, she put out a pretty good album, but nobody ever picked up on it.
There was a song on that called Living in the Light that I really liked, but the rest of the album, I don't really listen to albums. I just liked it. It was a magical moment. It was probably one of the last club records that I really, really did like, was this one.